Make a move extreme. Shortcut to your dreams. A blow straight to the stars on that flying thing. Get the snowblind games. Pikachu, Chickapoo in the world beyond. Got a beat, got a heat on the phone. It's stay over the park. Once the magic starts. Do you really wanna taste it? What's going on must come down. Baby, you're losing ground. Soon become the mirror, realize the whole is wrong with you. Dancing where your blinkers on. For your door, the invisible bone. Do you really wanna taste it? What's going on must come down. Baby, you're losing ground. Soon become the mirror, realize the whole is wrong with you. Dancing where your blinkers on. For your door, the invisible bone.
So, I was asked to talk about the HBO Max Peacemaker series, and here you go. Here it is. The spin-off to the movie The Suicide Squad, which saw John Cena's character, of all people, get the spin-off. It was kind of surprising to me. It's not like I was expecting really anything, because it's like, you know, the most popular character from that movie, Harley Quinn, doesn't need a spin-off because she already has her own animated show, so really wouldn't make sense. And with the other characters, even though James Gunn has said that there is going to be another character from the movie that's going to be getting its own spin-off, we still don't really know who that is yet. Peacemaker wasn't the first one on my mind when he had mentioned the first spin-off, but here it was. A character that, although I think is played well by John Cena, by the end of the movie is definitely very hated for killing Rick Flag, and just when you think Bloodsport put an end to Peacemaker by shooting him in the neck, that turned out not to be true, as the way James Gunn set things up, if you remember at the end of the Suicide Squad, the crew of Waller's ends up betraying her because she wanted the characters in the movie dead because they were disobeying her when they were just trying to save Corto Maltese from being taken over from Project Starfish. And to kind of punish the main people who didn't assault her, she was like, you know what? You're gonna go, you're gonna do this mission with Peacemaker. If you disobey me then, things, you know, might go down after that.
What the fuck did you do?
So, why don't we talk about the characters in this show, because they're not all going to be the same as what we saw in the movie, and there were a couple who were in the movie, but we maybe didn't get to know up until this series in general. So I think we'll start off with Peacemaker. When we first see him in the Suicide Squad, we're made to think he's this badass hitman who, you know, will get peace any way he can, no matter how many men, women, or children he has to kill to get it. You know, like, he'll do anything, he'll kill anyone without any hesitation.
He does exactly what I do, but better.
And you find out down the line that he's really just all talk. There's points in the show where he just becomes, I guess, entranced in killing Rick Flag, that he really can't kill anybody just like that anymore. Like, it has to be someone who's, like, really, really bad. Like, in the, I think, third episode, when he's told to, hey, you gotta kill the governor and his children and his wife, he is so hesitant to shoot the children when he's said in the past that he'll kill anybody, he doesn't care who it is. So you just kind of, you know, see that there. And he's very troubled. We definitely go in more depth of his childhood and how he became Peacemaker. And when we get to his father, you'll find out his father wasn't the best human being and father figure to Peacemaker in general. And we find out that Peacemaker's also kind of hated, kind of living in the shadow of his father, and just the way he goes about doing things. He's not very respected, and he's trying to, I guess, gain that respect by doing the hero thing in this sense.
Peacemaker. What a joke.
Portrayed very well by John Cena. I really couldn't picture any other actor playing this character in general. I don't really know much about how Peacemaker is in the comics, but John Cena was told by James Gunn not to read any of the comics beforehand, so I can probably tell that it's a lot different from what the comics have to offer, but not too much different. So I'm kind of cool with the fact that John Cena was able to kind of turn that into his own character as opposed to just going, well, what do the comics say? Oh, they say this, alright, I'm going to do that. He was able to go out and do his own thing. Then I think the next, other main character that we really have here, even though pretty much majority of these people I'm talking about are main characters, but, this is, one of the head in charge, that being Harcourt, who's basically the brains. She is Waller's right-hand woman, so she's not necessarily the boss, but when it comes to missions like this, she's the one in charge. She's the one that kind of, keeps everything in order. She's also kind of that strong, hot woman stereotype where it's like, oh, okay, she's hot, but she's also strong, so she doesn't take a whole lot of BS. And really, she's just doing her job. She doesn't want to be there, but it's what she gets paid to do. And for the most part, with her character, we kind of see her get more sympathetic as the show goes on. At the beginning, she's like, I don't care, I just want to fucking get this done, get this over with, blah, blah, blah. But as time goes on, we see more of the softer side toward her, and she starts to really kind of come on to, all the other characters in a way of friendship, and might even be starting some sort of other relationship with Peacemaker, as Peacemaker tried to hit on her in the first episode, and she just really wasn't having it. But now she's kind of come forward more to the fact that, maybe, just maybe, Peacemaker and I, it's more of a friendship. I don't know. And she almost got killed in the final episode. Luckily, she was saved. Spoiler alert. Sorry about that. I put a spoiler alert at the beginning of this video, so it shouldn't be no surprise. And now she's currently recovering from her injuries, so she really can't do anything right now, but, it's realistic, especially when she got shot, right down in here. If you're not going to die, you're definitely going to be left paralyzed for a while, and then you have to work your way back up to being able to be mobile again, if you can even be that. So the way it ended for her was kind of a little weird, but season 2 is supposed to happen, so she seems like she'll be back up on her feet and doing just fine by season 2. One of the other characters I think I want to talk about who also appeared in the Suicide Squad movie, very little, but he was in it, was John Economos. However you say, I think it's Economos. He's the comedic relief. Now, if you read the Suicide Squad comics, he kind of still is the comic relief, but he's got more brains than you think, as in this one. He's made to seem like he's this loser who's completely worthless and screws things up.
Look, I can help.
We need you to stay here, Ads. If something happens to us, you're the only hope.
The fuck am I?
Okay, maybe not completely worthless because, he does kind of kick the shit out of Judo Master. He takes a chainsaw to a literal gorilla and kills it. There's a reason for that. It's not that they were like, let's go kill this gorilla. The gorilla was being taken over by the butterflies and it was kind of on this rampage, so he killed it because he had to. And even at the end, in the last episode, when he's the only one who's not injured, has to go in and kind of go in disguise to trick the butterflies, being like, oh yeah, I'm one of you guys, so he can plant the Sonic Boom Peacemaker helmet to blow up the barn. He does that, and he ends up realizing that, hey, this is what I have to do. I'm going to do it, even though he kind of hesitates at first. So, yeah, he's mainly there for the comedic relief, but you start to realize that he's not really the loser that we think he is. He's not completely worthless. He's just more of the computer tech guy, sure, but when he needs to go out and do something, he might just be able to do it in this case. And I love the monologue. Steve Agee plays his character, by the way. It's the same person that played King Shark, and by played King Shark, I mean the body of King Shark. I know Sylvester Stallone did the voice.
Bird.
But most of the time, the movement of the shark, that was all Steve Agee, and him playing Economos, again, is fitting. And that monologue about, there's this whole running joke where Peacemaker calls Economos Diebeard because his beard is all like, not discolored, but it's like part of it's gray and part of it's like red and all this kind of stuff. And he swears throughout the show, I don't dye my beard, I don't dye my beard. And then when he's talking to the butterflies at the end and they're like, why is your beard like that? He finally admits that he was dyeing his beard, and then he goes in this whole monologue about thinking like, because, you know, I've never had a girlfriend before, I'm a loser, and it was just to make myself feel better.
He thought it made him look younger and more handsome.
He never had a girlfriend, so he thought dyeing his beard might help.
But he was also lazy and busy with his job. And he wouldn't dye his roots regularly.
And when he did, he used the cheapest brand because he was incredibly underpaid.
Mostly, though, he never thought anybody noticed.
Until recently. When one guy said it to him all the time.
Vigilante, he doesn't really come in until, I think, the second episode? Yeah, I think it was the second episode. The first episode, you hear his voice, because when Peacemaker leaves the hospital and technically thinks he's out of prison, he checks his voicemails, and Vigilante's left like hundreds of them since the 4 years that he's been in prison. And he's kind of the wannabe in some sort of way. I mean, he basically does what Peacemaker does. That's why he's called Vigilante. He goes out there, and this could be something as simple as, oh, someone's smoking weed or murdering somebody. He'll just kill people for breaking any certain law, and he's so keen on keeping his identity a secret that he won't even tell Peacemaker, his so-called best buddy, his own secret identity. Now, that is figured out later in episode 3 when Peacemaker finds it out, and then everybody else finds it out as well because he does get unmasked. But, you know, for the most part, he just assumes a lot of things. You find out he's not really that intelligent. He might be an okay fighter, but that's about it. And he wasn't a part of the plan to begin with. He just kind of showed up, and then because he found out about the plan, they just kind of had to let him in because it was like, oh, well, now we have no choice. So he wasn't originally a part of the plan, and then he was made a part of the plan. So, you know, overall, though, you definitely see him screw up a lot, but toward the end, he definitely becomes a bigger help, and him and Peacemaker actually become, like, best friends at the end of the series heading into season 2. So we'll see how that carries over in the next season.
Dude, you're upset about that?
Well, how else am I going to experience motherhood?
Then we have Adebayo. Now, she's a mysterious character. She basically doesn't want to be there in a way that she just doesn't think this fits her that well. She's not really great in combat. She's not really great with a whole lot of things. But the reason she's there, we find out, is because she's Amanda Waller's daughter. Viola Davis pops up twice throughout this whole entire series as Amanda Waller, that being in the first episode and in the last episode. And Adebayo, to me, has probably the best arc of any character in the show, because she's not like Economist where she starts off completely worthless, but there's definitely this question of, can she do this? Is she tough enough? And then toward the end, she just kind of just does stuff you would never think, and she starts to realize, maybe I am made for this, but I don't want to do what my mother has set out to do. So in the end, spoiler alert, she basically puts an end to the Suicide Squad by ousting her mom and saying, you know, there's this secret, you know, task force that my mother, Amanda Waller, has been hiding from the government to do these deadly missions and basically kind of bribe villains in one way or another.
This is all part of a Black Ops program known as Task Force X, where convicted criminals are undertaking dangerous missions for the United States in exchange for time off their sentences. It's been running for years out of Belle Reef Prison under the command of a woman named Amanda Waller.
What the fuck?
That was like brave of her to do, because now she's basically lost the trust of her mother, but gain the trust for everybody else. As early on, she was planted by her mother to try to frame Peacemaker for this whole Project Butterfly thing by planting this diary, doing this and that, and of course Peacemaker finds out, and their friendship kind of gets torn until the end when she kind of redeems herself. She becomes the badass, and when she does what she does, Peacemaker's like, maybe she does truly care about not just me, but the whole group in general. And she goes back home to her wife at the end. I don't know if she has a job. Most of these people, once all that happens, kind of go off and do their own thing. Harcourt, like I said, still recovering. Economist, like he is in the comics, is now a warden at a penitentiary. And, of course, Vigilante's just with Peacemaker, and Adebayo goes back home. Then we have Myrn, who is one of the first interesting characters, because you didn't really know what was going to happen with him, because he's kind of, as I like to call, the curveball character. At first, you're kind of suspicious of him. Like, you're like, this dude, he could be bad, but at the same point in time, I don't know. And it's at the end of episode 4 when we find out that he is one of the butterflies. Now, it turns out that that was just kind of like a ploy by James Gunn to make us think, oh my god, maybe he really is the bad guy, he's trying to screw everything up. But he's actually the one butterfly who betrayed his own, I guess you call it, colony, planet, whatever, and he's basically trying to rid the Earth of these butterflies so that way their plan doesn't come to fruition, because he doesn't necessarily want to see that. He's not all for what they're for in general. So we find out that he is actually good. It was just weird to kind of see him attack Adebayo after she figured out that he was a butterfly, but he's like, whoa, wait, and then Harcourt comes in like, yeah, we knew, John Economist knew, but Peacemaker doesn't know, so don't tell him that. But yeah, like I said, he's basically made to think that he's bad when really he's not, and the whole time you find out, oh, he was really trying to help. When Waller called him in, Waller wasn't trying to sabotage, she literally was like, this guy wants to help. That's basically what he was there for. Now we're getting to some kind of lesser characters, I guess. They're characters that have something to do with the story, but, in the end, they're just kind of there. First, we have Augie Smith, which is Peacemaker's dad. Peacemaker's real name is Christopher Smith. Augie Smith, we find out, is a very, very hateful man. He is racist, misogynistic, he is a neo-Nazi. He's everything about a person that you just hate. And he's really, we find out, a bad dad. He was one of those characters where, unlike Myrn, when you thought, oh, he's bad, you thought that maybe Peacemaker's dad was gonna, come to, realization that, oh, they need my help, maybe if I help and whatever, and then, he kind of, comes like, oh, son, I'm proud of you, this, that, and the other. But that never happens. It just gets worse and worse. We find out that he used to be this villain called the White Dragon, and it just was like, he would force Peacemaker, and when he was younger, and his brother, to literally fight, to the point where Peacemaker ends up accidentally killing his brother because he hits him so hard that he has a seizure, and for years Peacemaker's dad held that against him when really it was his fault for making them fight in the first place. That's what led to Peacemaker being the way he is now, with the whole gaining peace thing. No matter who gets in the way or stands in the way, he's going to do what it takes to make sure that there's peace on Earth. Like, he just was just mentally just abusive toward Peacemaker, and we find that out throughout the whole time, and he's basically the other bad guy. He dies because Peacemaker shoots him in the second to last episode of season 1, but he's probably still going to be around because Peacemaker's now seeing his father in his head.
My body may be gone, but the rest of me is right here, and I ain't going nowhere!
So he's not completely gone, but he is dead in this kind of way. So who knows, maybe there'll still be that thing where in his head Peacemaker will be like, my dad's proud of me now, that kind of thing. It's weird how they set that up, but I literally thought that maybe Peacemaker's dad will come through, and like I said, every episode we saw him, it just kept getting worse and worse. Plus, this all stemmed from him getting mad because when that whole thing went down in the first episode with Peacemaker, to make sure Peacemaker wasn't caught, they said, well, okay, just frame somebody else, put somebody's name in there. And of course, Economist, being the screw up that he was early on in the season, put Peacemaker's dad in as the, wanted person as opposed to Peacemaker. And when Peacemaker's dad found that out, he was going to try to rat out Peacemaker's group, this, that, and the other. He's like, I got information, and that just kind of made him more pissed at his son, to the point where he was like, all right, I'm going to kill him. And he tries to, and of course fails in this case. So that's where all that comes from. Then we have Judo Master, who at first he was like, seemed important, but then it just made me realize that it was more of the, I don't know what the hell we're doing with this character. Like, he's seen for a good bit in the 3rd episode, and even throughout the 4th, and he mentions while he's fighting Peacemaker in one of the episodes, he's like, the butterflies, you don't understand, you don't know, and then, of course, Adebayo shoots him before he can finish. He doesn't die, but it's just kind of weird that he's made out like he's supposed to play an important, integral part in this story, and then he just kind of doesn't. He like pops up again, steals these 2 dudes' car who are making fun of him for his size because he is, legally a little person, and then he just kind of disappears, and you see him right at the end when all the other butterflies are dead, and he's crying. He's like, oh my god. And part of me is hoping that maybe he plays a bigger part in season 2. I mean, why would you have this character, make him like he's important, and then not have him do anything at all? So maybe he has something to do with season 2. I don't know. Even James Gunn said he doesn't know what season 2 is going to hold. But, it was just one of those characters that kind of devolved as the series went on and was used less and less, and you're just kind of like, okay, so what was the point of this character in the first place? Like, you just never really could figure it out, because we first see him in the 3rd episode when Peacemaker and the group are told to kill the mayor, governor, or whatever, and he's the so-called security guard protector of the mayor, and that's when we start figuring out this whole Project Butterfly thing and how that was going down. And then I think the last character we really need to talk about is Goff. If you're wondering why I didn't talk about the 2 cop characters, like the main cop characters throughout the series that are trying to catch Peacemaker, is because Goff ends up taking one of them over, the female police officer. And he's kind of like the leader of the butterflies, and he was actually the butterfly that was in the mayor before the mayor was killed by Peacemaker, and he kind of held Goff for a while in a jar because he was like, well, I don't know, maybe Goff wants to help with this, that, and the other, and then Goff ends up escaping, and, that's when all hell breaks loose with that. And we realize that he is the real bad guy. He's the one that created the plan for the butterflies to, I don't want to say basically rule Earth, but there's this whole thing where they have, like, this honey type thing that kind of keeps them alive, and if they don't have a certain amount of it, or after a certain amount of time, then they do end up dying and passing away, and that would lead to the extinction of their, I was going to say race. I guess you can say race. They don't want that, obviously, and that's why they bring in this cow. It's like an alien creature, but they call it their cow because they, they're equivalent of milking it to get the honey to stay alive. And basically he wants it to where there's so much honey around that there will be an infinite amount of butterflies that can basically take control of every human and, just become, one with the humans, I guess. Because when they take over a human and then they leave, the human is dead. It's like in the Suicide Squad with the starfish. Once they take over a human, even if they were to, jump off that human is dead. They can't really resurrect the person, so it's like they want to stay in those bodies, I guess, to try to live forever in some way. I don't know. I'm still kind of confused with that story, but, it is what it is. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad definitely left you confused toward the end, like, wait a minute, what the hell? And that was just this whole Peacemaker series. And, yeah, toward the end, though, we do realize that Goff had good intentions, as he told Peacemaker in his monologue, but Peacemaker, for the greater good of everybody else, shuts the plan down, and basically that's it. That's where we're left off.
Activate human torpedo.
it's an integral story, an interesting story, and the fact that James Gunn was able to take this small character that at this point nobody liked because mainly of the killing of Rick Flag and I guess just his arrogance in general, and turn it into this hit series. And it's probably one of the best things that DC has done in years. I mean, yeah, the Suicide Squad got rave reviews, but it was a box office bomb. But this was like watched by thousands and thousands of people, and if it wasn't for the Batman coming out, I think that this would probably be the best thing that DC has definitely done this year. And I mean, it's definitely up there. I mean, DC with shows has had a lot better success than it has with movies, so it's kind of no surprise that Peacemaker was this successful. But I think, again, just the character that was chosen to get his own spin-off. Peacemaker was probably the last one that I would have guessed, but you know, the way they set things up in the movie, I guess it was kind of expected in this way. Like, it wasn't just James Gunn throwing together an end credit scene for the sake of it. You knew it had to be for something, and it was for this, and throughout its 8 episodes, it was just entertaining all the way through. I don't really think there was ever a time where I felt less entertained. Now, there was that whole thing at the beginning of episode 2 where he's trying to escape the hotel building where he killed the first butterfly and whatnot. That goes on for way too long. But other than that, if that's my only complaint, then well, I mean, we're living good here. There's a lot of good things. Another thing I didn't like was John Cena and his fucking butt cheeks.
Come together like butt cheeks.
And underwear, we see that way too often. We see it in the hospital in the first episode when he turns around, you see his ass crack, and then at the end of that first episode when he's having sex with the woman that he later finds out is a butterfly, he's basically in his underwear throughout that whole time. He's fighting her, and the whole time he's trying to escape, and it just, at first it's funny, but then you're just like, alright man, put some clothes on. Like, at this point, it's kind of just worthless, this joke at this point. You're like beating a dead horse, and I've said it before, DC has a problem with that. They'll make a joke that at first is funny, and then they'll keep repeating it, and then it's just like, alright, we get it, come up with something else. At this point, it's just not funny. So yeah, very excited for what Season 2 has to offer. From what I heard, with Season 2 being a go, they said it should be out sometime next year. If I had to guess, probably late next year, because even though shows like this don't take as long as animated shows, James Gunn is still currently working on the other Suicide Squad spin-off, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, another movie, and this, he's definitely going to find time to start Season 2, but the fact that he said, I'm kind of in the starting, you know, I just started writing Season 2 and don't really know fully what he's going to do, that leads me to believe that it's not even close to production time yet. So we'll see, but yeah, it's a great series overall. Would definitely recommend, especially if you're one of the ones who saw the Suicide Squad movie and were really unsure about him as a character. You'll definitely get to know the character a little bit more and understand why James Gunn chose this character in particular over the others, even though, like I said, there is supposed to be another character from the movie that is getting its own spin-off, and like I said, I don't know who that character is. We were told that we were going to see it at the end of episode 8, like a cameo, but the only cameo we got in the final episode of the season was the Justice League, when we saw blacked out Superman and Wonder Woman, and Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller came back to do their cameos, and they actually had speaking lines in there, which was pretty funny, because there was a running joke that Aquaman likes to fuck fish.
He bangs chicks, good for him. He fucks dudes, got no problem with that. He starts fucking fish, that's taking it a step too far.
When Aquaman points that out to Peacemaker, Barry Allen says, well, I mean, it's not completely untrue, to which we hear Jason Momoa's Aquaman say, fuck you, Barry, and I was so happy that Jason Momoa was the one that got to drop the F-bomb.
Go fuck another fish, asshole!
I'm so fucking sick of that rumor.
It's not a rumor.
Fuck you, Barry.
That's basically my take on this. You can tell me in the comments below if you've seen Peacemaker. What did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you indifferent with it? Like, what's your take on it overall? Not just from how good is it from a DC standpoint, but when it comes to these shows that are being made now, how good overall is it from these other top shows that people talk about and whatnot? And are you excited for Season 2? But yeah, That's it for me. Stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and until then, I will catch you all in the next one.
Dude, I didn't mean to put your father in prison.
Then why'd you put him there, you fat fuck?
Because I couldn't think of anybody else.
What about Ariana Grande or Drake?
What?
Brad Pitt or Payne Stewart or Doug the Pug? Khloe Kardashian, the Red Tiger from Voltron, Fran Tarkenton, Joe Montana, Joe Montana, Eddie Murphy, Michael Jordan, Michael B. Jordan, BTS, Eugene Levy,
Fuck, dude.
John Lovitz. Shut the fuck up and listen, man. I'm giving you a list of people you could have done. Danny DeVito, Will Ferrell, Howard Stern, Baba Booey, Robin Ophelia, Quivers, Alice Cooper, Ozzy Osbourne, Sharon Osbourne, Bill Cosby. He just got out. He's got time on his hands. Amy Winehouse.
Dude, Amy Winehouse is fucking dead.
Optimus Prime, Shipwreck, Cobra Commander, the fucking cunts from Riverdale. Mariska Hargitay, Mario, Super Mario, fucking Luigi, Yoshi, the Princess, Bert, Ernie, Grover, Snuffleupagus, Burger King, Grimace, Ronald McDonald, two old guys from the balcony and the Muppets, Jim Morrison, any one of the fucking Beatles, Pete Best, George Carlin, dead, Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, Ice-T, Ice Cube, Vanilla Ice, Elvis fucking Presley, Priscilla Presley, Seth Meyers. What about Seth Meyers? Or for that matter, Jay Leno? Conan's not really doing much right now.
All right, most of those, you're right, could probably go to prison.